up YouTube, Demi here. This is another Demi Splains. Today we'll be discussing what triple T1 prefix and triple T1 suffix actually means. Because a lot of people are just throwing it around or linking me items and saying, look Demi, I made a triple T1 prefix, or a triple T1 item, and I'm like, yes, it is technically 3 T1 rolls. But that does not mean that it is triple T1. So we'll start with a triple T1 prefix item. For example, this character's helm. It has T1% energy shield, T1 flat energy shield, and T1% increased energy shield and hybrid stun and block recovery. Those are all triple T1 rolls and they are all prefixes. That is a triple T1 item. It has all T1 prefixes. Now other triple T1 items that we can look at are my work in progresses. I have a bunch of these. These are all triple T1 suffixes. T1 attack speed, T1 accuracy, T1 all res. T1 int, T1 fire res, T1 lightning res. Those are all suffixes, all suffixes. T1 int, T1 cast speed, T1 fire res, all suffixes. T1 dex, T1 all res, T1 cold res, all suffixes. Those are triple T1 items. If you have a random, like, rare item that you used alterations and regals on, and you manage to hit, like, say, I don't know, for instance, say you hit T1 life, which is a prefix, T1 cold res, which is a suffix, and T1 strength, which is a suffix. Technically, you have 3 T1 rolls, but it is not a triple T1 item. Triple T1 prefix or triple T1 suffix. Like there's a slight difference between the two. Triple T1 prefix or triple T1 suffix means that it is a base that you can then craft with to turn into a mirror item. Like for example, this ring we made with Chaos Spam, it was strength, fire res, lightning damage, which are all suffixes, all T1 rolls. And I believe it had life as a prefix, so we exalted it and hit wed, which is another T1 prefix. So that became 5 T1 item, and then we crafted 20% armor on it, which is another T1 roll. It becomes 6 T1s, which makes it into a mirror item. That being said, you don't actually need a 6 T1 perfectly divined item for it to be considered worthy of mirror service. For example, we'll go through a couple people's forum threads. We'll go through Offak's thread, for example. Offak is one of my standard crafting buddies. He has a lot of mirror items. And his number 1 mirrored item is this axe. It has 12 copies made, and the fee is 60x, right? But Demi, this is a multi-modded item. How is this mirror worthy? Well, it's T1% increased physical damage, T1 flat physical damage, both prefixes, and it has bleed on hit as the third prefix, which is a T1 roll since you cannot get it via alteration, regals, or exalts. And then it has tier 1% increased attack speed as a suffix, +2 weapon range as a suffix, and then multiple crafted mods as a suffix. Multiple crafted mods is kind of useless, right? But it's the only way that you can get bleed on hit and +2 weapon range at the same time. The reason why this has been mirrored so many times is because it is the best two-handed bleed weapon available that doesn't require you, that doesn't have, what am I trying to say? Sorry, math. That has weapon range and also bleed on hit. That makes it a unique item and the best item of that kind of weapon. And then if you look at his second weapon in his thread, it is the highest cast speed crit dagger that's available for casters. So it's T1 cast speed, T0 cast speed, T1 fire, T1 multi, T1 crit chance, hybrid spell damage, and crafted spell damage. Yes, it has a crafted mod, but because it has because it is the best item of its type, cast speed dagger, crit dagger for spellcasters, whatever, it is the number 1 caster dagger, so it can be mirrored. If we to take a look at for example, my axe in my mirror thread, which is more or less the same as his axe, right? Where'd it go? Other mirror items, weapons. My axe looks very similar to his. T1% increased physical damage, tier 2 fizz, tier 2 attack speed, crit and then bleed on hit. I could do weapon range bleed on hit as well, the exact same in his thread, sorry. But because mine's on a different base, this is the critical base of Flesh Ripper. This is the best Flesh Ripper of its kind, which makes it mirror worthy. Because there is nothing better for this specific option, this is the number 1, which means it is worthy of being mirrored. Same with my wand. It has, technically, it's multi-modded, right? So it's not 61s, but it has the highest physical damage roll tier 1, the highest chaos damage roll tier 1, and they're both divine to very near perfection. which makes it the best Fizz Chaos wand available on the server, or in-game for that matter, which means it's ready for mirror service. What other things can we go over? Hysteria belts. I have a lot of Hysteria belts that do not have triple T1 suffixes. The penetration thing while using a flask is a suffix. This has tier 1 cold res. I can't. Okay, and tier 1, or sorry, tier 2 lightning res, right? Those are not T1, 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 right? But because it's the best of its kind, it is still ready to be mirrored. I hope you guys are getting the gist of this. What's the other? Let me look at the hybrid belt that got mirrored. Where'd it go? This one. This is like, why would you mirror this? It's shit. It's got life on an ES base. Why would you do that? I don't know. Somebody did it. But because it has tier 1 wed, tier 1 life, crafted move speed, which is a tier 1 roll, T1 fire res, reduced flash charges used, reduced and increased flask effect duration. Those are all T1 rolls. 6 T1 item, best of its kind on a crystal base, mirror worthy. So it got mirrored. I kind of forgot where I was going with this. But yeah, so basically to make a mirror item, you don't have to make the 6T1 perfectly rolled item like the best item in the game, right? So let's go to PV trade. Let's go over recent examples such as Phobite. Phobite, until very recently, was the #1 physical DPS wand available in the game, right? 428 DPS on the old version, I believe. And then the new version has 432 DPS. But I believe it's really badly rolled, I'm not sure. That being said, if we were to just look at wands, it was recently dethroned. Now, Phobite, let me see if I can do this without using this search. Phobite is not 6T1s, right? This is tier 2 attack speed, and this is actually tier 2 Fizz with the old T1 hybrid Fizz, which was at higher roll than it used to have. If you look at the old versions, they actually have a higher percent increased physical damage than the new versions do. 243. He divined it and it got slightly worse, but it somehow still gained DPS. But this was the #1 physical wand for many, many years, I think, like multiple years. I want to say 2 to 3 years. And it was mirrored, I don't know, probably hundreds of times because it was the best of its kind. Now, it was recently overtaken by a new wand crafted by Vic the Finder, which I believe has 474 DPS or so. Let me check offline, it's not showing up. And this one is actually 6T1s. Assuming it wants to show up. Your query is too broad. Okay, hang on. Let's do 400 minimum DPS. There it is. Bloodthirst Imbued Wand by Vic the Finder. 474 DPS. It's perfect T1, T1, new T1s, so Merciless and Dictator's Fizz damage. T1 Flaring, T1 attack speed, T1 crit strike chance, T1 crit multi, and then this is from the Hybrid's prefix. So it's like substantially better than Vic the Finder's, right? Or sorry, than Rayam's. So this is now the new #1 wand, but because this wand had no competition beforehand, this was mirrored many, many, many times. If we go to my Legacy League mirror thread, my Damnation Chant Titanium Sphere Shield, this is the highest spell damage, spell crit, like caster shield that's available in Standard as well as in League, as far as I know. And if I had it perfectly divined, I believe it hits 525 ES or so. 79% spell damage, 109% spell crit, 50 int, which is the equivalent of 10% ES, as well as 8% cast speed. That makes it the best spell damage, or sorry, the best DPS caster shield in the League, as well as in Standard, so that means it's mirror worthy. When it comes to Standard, I'm probably going to take off this T2% ES and try to hit T1% ES, but until then, it's still the best of its kind, so it is ready for mirror service. I don't really remember what the next thing I wanted to talk about is, so my apologies for that. But I hope you learned something from this. I hope you learned what triple T1 means. I hope you learned what a mirror item can and cannot be. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you have any suggestions for the next Demi Splains video, leave them in the comments. But yeah, that's it. Check out the rest of the playlist if you want. There's a bunch of other Demi Splains. This is just one of many. Hope you learned something though. That's Demi out.